then it was under the auspices of the Little Theatre Movement. It was evening classes. So I worked with Barclays Bank. Yes, Father. They were smart. They never put me on cash. What is it, a year and a half or 2 years plus. And then during that time, I'd done the first pantomime in 71. I met Olive Lewin through the late Vibart Seaford. He was from Seaford. He was from Guyana. And so I got involved with the Jamaican folk singers. Oh, yes, I spent a year with them. But I also got involved in social work because Olive Lewin was working with the Social Development Commission, and she was doing the rehabilitation program or part of it in the 6 prisons of Jamaica. That's what they were called. Then they are now called Correctional Center. And so she got some of us younger ones involved. And I was the cultural and recreational officer working in all 6 prisons. That was fascinating. I'm telling you, that's where I met like Oko Onura, dub poet, because he was also incarcerated. Anyway, for about a year, I did this job, fascinating. And I was teaching drama and I was teaching the record.
Industrial Society and Its Future by Theodore John Kaczynski.
Leon, I think you need to mute your mic.
1. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster.
1 second, Faye, sorry.
They have
Leon, please mute your mic.
Of those of us who live in advanced countries, but they have destabilized society, have made life unfulfilling, have subjected human beings to indignities, have led to widespread suffering in the third world, to physical suffering
no,
and have inflicted severe damage on the natural world.
I don't know him personally, but there we go.
Yeah. So I was there working, teaching the inmates the business of the theater and also teaching recorder. But after a year, I just got fed up because I didn't think the rehabilitation program was going very well. I was still very young and impetuous, I believe, but I think I had good reason to do what I did. I went to the women's prison one day, and that in those days, it was at the back of the Tower Street prison. You would go through the main gates, go down to the back, then turn right, walk over a little gully and go in. Not a gully, a little trench. And when I went in, I saw the place look clean up. I mean, it was never usually nasty, but it wasn't sparkling. I mean, ladies were fully, starched up in their uniforms. I said, what's happening? And they said, Mrs. Manley, that's Beverly Manley, was coming to visit. And I got so angry. I said, you need to let her see them in the usual conditions so that she can go and advocate on their behalf. And I walked off the job. Then I went home and I discovered I didn't have any rich parents, and I had to work because I didn't have anybody to take care of me. So the first week, I think I went into a kind of panic. And then the second week, I am one of those persons who think through what I'm going to do. I said, oh my God, I have to get a job. So I got in touch with Leonie Forbes, who had taught me at School of Drama, who was now the head of JBC Radio 2, which was the FM channel that recently started, to ask her if there was a job. Now I'm thinking of behind the scenes, because even though I'd been involved in theater, I shy and fool, and I wasn't thinking of being on air. She then got in touch with the late Dennis Hall, who was the first quiz master for Schools Challenge Quiz, but he was also the chief presenter, chief announcer, right? And I was called in for an interview with Dennis Hall. When I tell him, the think of behind the scenes, I'm not giving me something to do. All of a sudden, me here, I have to go in a studio, go read things. But dead, right? That's dead complete. And then give me what is known as an audition packet with like news stories. And the other days you'd have to get some classical music names and whatever. But never want me to get on. I know that those days I weighed 95 pounds and you could hear my bones rattling, but I managed. And I did the radio audition. And then he says to me, then it's all that is, come little one, come, we're going over to television. Tell you who? This is at the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation. No, that was every reason for me to faint completely, but I held it together, went over there, they put me in the studio, gave me the script, turn on the light, turn on the camera and say, action. Well, I start the action for true, I start to read. And I made an error and I cussed a little bad word. And at the end of it, Dennis Hall says to me, tell me something. If that were to happen and you're on air and you made an error, is that what you would do? Of course, I shame like a dog. a shame, so till. So I said, no, sir. Long and short of it, after about 3 interviews at different levels, I was hired and started working September 16, 1974. It was a fascinating time for many reasons in Jamaica's social and political development. And 74, Michael Manley had won an election. In 72, this is 74, so all kinds of things were happening. And I want to share something else with you, although this talk is not about that. The decade of the 70s was rich with theater. We don't need to discuss that at another time. Going into the 80s, amazing theater came out of that time. Anyway, back to broadcasting. And my life, though, you know, my career has been parallel with theater and with broadcasting. And then I expanded broader now to lecture and communicate, and then to become an MC, a host, a compare, an orator, you know. Anyway, so we had to be, listen to this, all of us, there were 4 of us, the late John Jones, Milton Blake, Gene Rattigan joined later on, but we had to have 3 months of training, in-house training, before we could open the mic and go on air. And the very first thing that you're allowed to, well, I was allowed to do it, you weren't given a program. I was allowed to do something like, and this is it, this is the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation. It's now 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock.
The time signals.
That's what I want to say, no. And you do that about 2 weeks, you know, and they might check, you know, if tone right and if this right and if that right. Then after that, you have, this is the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation. It's now 6 o'clock and time for music from the Green Antilles. One program they really named so. On and on. But the thing is, you couldn't just go on and hype it out. You had to be initiated, socialized, have the orientation, trained, and we had to go through the different, learn about the different departments, what happened in the music library, the record library it was called, you know, what's happening in the newsroom, what's happening in traffic. Yes, we do have a department in media called traffic, and that is where all the contracts and the sales is, and everything comes in the programs, and you develop what is known as a log, and the log is a broadcaster's Bible. You don't just do as you feel like. And remember, media is time, and we don't approximate time. So it is either 7 o'clock or half a minute past 7, but we don't say 7, you know, but when we're taking the commercials, that is playing the commercials, we say taking the commercials, we used to have to note every single time. Now the computer does it. So there could be a Colgate Palmolive commercial being played at 7:27:13 or 7:28:48, you know, and so we would do all of that. But my initiation was excellent. After the 3-month training and the initiation of introducing, doing the station ID and the time signals and all of that, I'd have little programs to do. There was one called Good News, 5-minute program. But that was 1974. In 1975, I got an opportunity to do a program called the Bamboo Lounge. And that was an afternoon program. And that stirred up the afternoon. Remember, in those days, there were only 2 radio stations, 2 media houses, broadcast media houses. So there was RJR, which started some years before us, and there was JBC Radio, which started in 1959. I was at the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, JBC. And the Bamboo Lounge really created a stir in the afternoon. Then I was fortunate, I suppose. I have, if I may say so for myself, excellent work ethic. So even though I was hired to be an announcer and a producer, I would run behind people like Dennis Hall. Wherever he was going, I'd ask if I could accompany him. I would go with the broadcast technicians, they were called technical operators, and I'd carry some of the cables, and because I just wanted to learn how this whole thing works, you know. Go down to Parliament, Gordon House with Dennis Hall to look at Gordon House, where the various rooms are. Well, okay, this is where you sit in the gallery if you come to observe what's happening, and so on and so forth. And so I got this program, and diligently working on my program. In 1977, I was sent to the British Broadcasting Corporation, and that was between the British Council and the JBC to do, guess what? Not presentation, but radio production. My strength is in production. And so for many years, I've taught the radio documentary course at the University of the West Indies at Carrimack. I'm big on production. Many people don't know that.
You're the reason I almost did radio instead of TV. Just cutting in to say that. Anyway, continue.
As a matter of fact, I hear you. I should. Anyway, I will perhaps find it. So those days, you know what you people do know, what we all do called cut and paste and copy. The cutting
Mhm.
was really cutting. And it was, what did I do with it? And it was really with a razor blade, but the razor blade had a back that you could hold, not a regular razor.
Okay.
And we
Yeah.
had, I think it is sitting there. I'd love to show it to you. Could you just give me a second?
Yeah, man, go on.
Right over here somewhere. Ah, yes, it is. I keep this when I'm doing presentations. I share this with younger people than myself, like Uno. Right, here we go.
1 or 2 years younger, go on.
Yeah, I know. Don't ever report it to your mother, you know. So this was called the editing block, and you'll see
Okay.
a diagonal and a straight. And so you'd get the reel-to-reel tape, reel-to-reel. Many of you don't know what that look like. See it here? Reel-to-reel.
Okay.
You have a program, it's recorded on that, and there's some editing you need to do. You listen to the tape, you find the spot that you need to edit, you put it in the editing block, okay?
Mhm.
You use your chinograph, which is a pencil, to
Good
mark
gravy.
badam, badam, and depending on whether it's music or speech, whether you use a diagonal or not, you cut, you lift out the part you want, or you put in the part you
Mm.
want, and then you put the tape on. Now here's a razor blade I was telling you about. This is a razor blade, so it has a hard,
Okay.
so it wouldn't cut you. You hold it like that, and so we
Mhm.
literally cut, and then we'd have to paste. Same terminology that you all use. And so when the new technology started to come around, I just
This this
fell in it. I fell
yours
into,
was harder. Your
yeah,
cut and pasting was harder.
we use this to join what the section that you've cut, right? The editing
Mhm.
tape. But and so a few of the younger people were a little surprised that I got this thing so quickly, but I had done it,
Mm.
So all
Mm.
of you people who can't do nothing except his laptop and computer and turn
Mhm.
want to do it, and the laptop now we'll cut and paste phone, the real thing. Anyway, so my 3 months at the Broadcasting Corporation were really good months. I am, of course, I was radical, and so I took my radicalism there as well. They wanted me to do one of the projects, an outside broadcast at Portsmouth, at some dockyard. I said no.
Mhm.
I don't want to do my outside broadcast there. I want to do an outside broadcast in Scotland, in the gardens at Scotland. And, and so I did it because we had gone to Scotland for 4 days as well. So I did it.
Mhm.
It was so some of those things behind me from the
Mhm.
BBC. So those were. I eventually went back years later to do a trainer's course. So I'm a trained BBC trainer for media.
Okay.
Anyway, so when I came back now, December 1977, I'm going to, how many people are on? Somebody must have, if you're old enough, you may have heard me say this before. So I came back, the British Airways flight, right? Or was it
Mhm.
VOA? Anyway, come in, and like late at night or early morning, and I went all the way up to Plantation Heights, Colin and Annette's, because I'd given up my apartment. And then
Mm.
early morning, so excited. I come back, man, got onto JBC, and I'm walking around telling people hi and Tarnas. And I went into the radio too, which is, remember, Leonie Forbes had got me involved, and she was the head of
Mhm.
radio. And for some reason, the newsreader who should have come to read the news at 12, I think it was, just wasn't there. So, of course, they handed me the thing and said, Faye, you have to do this. I said, sure, man, give it to me, give it to me. And so
Okay.
then story number one, I'm gonna read story number two, everything is fine. Mark, I hadn't gone to do that, but I had quite a bit
Mm.
of competence in that area.
Mhm.
Story number three, something from the Scientific Research Council, and Ellington reads about the organisms that I have on the paper, but I read orgasms. Uh, Lindy Della Penna, my dear friend, he flagged the thing at the end. He said, Ellington, Ellington, what happened to you? What happened to you? What the hell are you reading, love? What the hell? So I say all of that when I train people. I say certain things you don't bring attention to by saying it, all right? You just correct it and move on. You have to learn
Mhm.
to recover in this business. You
Mhm.
can't allow it to floor you. You have to learn to recover. And so I went on. Now, 1978, so I came back in December 77, 1978, I got a most wonderful opportunity, which was to be the first woman to do an early morning show. So I started on this December 4, 1978, what was the morning ride. And that was amazing. I did wonderful things like calling people early in the morning and waking them up, and you have to be very careful with that, you know. But the programs I did, you could call them magazine programs because they had a little of everything, like the Bamboo Lounge. Well, all my programs had music, interviews, features, quizzes, all that kind of thing. But I also had great guidance from the people who were head of the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation at the time. Then you also had to read news, okay? And so there was some interest in having me read television news long before I agreed to do it because I didn't think I was ready. You also have to learn to assess your own capabilities and readiness for certain things. And when I was ready, you know. And so I anchored television news as well. But I did many programs. There was a program called Spotlight, a half-hour television interview program that was produced by Maxine Trotter, who is now in Florida, and that I had done. Now, interviewing is one of my strong skills, and
That it is.
I, you know how wonderful it feels for a young person. Perhaps was 22 or 23, and this cellist, she came from England or Wales, I don't remember. But when I took her in studio and just spoke with her about to do the interview, I was finished and done the interview. Said to me, I have traveled the world and I've been interviewed by many people, but no one has done an interview like you or made me feel as comfortable as you did. These are little things that you have to do. Now, if you're doing a news interview, it's a totally different thing. You are under no obligation to make anyone feel comfortable in a news interview. You ask, Minister, did you sign the contract or what? That kind of thing, you know. You don't say, well, tell me, if you don't want to answer that question, you don't have to answer that question. No. But if you're doing a personality interview, we're talking to people about aspects of their life, you need to ensure that you do not embarrass them. So it's always good to ask, is there anything that you would not want to talk about? So doing all these, and I was doing other programs, and I started to get, before I went to England, I did my first I did Sir Alexander Bustamante's funeral. That was September 1977. I went to England about a week after that. And this was the first state funeral. The late Dennis Hall was inside the Holy Trinity and I was by the gate. It rained. And you can't run out and say, oh, it's raining. I did the coverage in the rain. When it was finished, I was soaked. When I sat in Uncle Dennis's car, everything was soaked. You understand? But this is what the job calls for.
Yeah,
You can't get up and run away. You sit down there and deliver, you know. And so people like Gladstone Wilson, who was once director of radio, will tell you, I have a passion for research. I'm going to research things out. But when you're being prepared for an outside broadcast, one of the most valuable pieces of information I ever got was, make sure you have 5 times more than you think you need in terms of information. Something could happen and you have to fill, you know? And it's not just say, oh, it's a sunny day today. You need more than that. You're going to talk about the weather, then you have to talk about, like what I did at Mr. Seaga's funeral. I checked the Met Office, found out what the conditions were, why the haze was that, talk about the Sahara dust, where it come from. You have some effort and thing into it. And I did the backwash when I spoke about the helicopter after it took off after covering President Obama's visit. So I've had the opportunity of covering some outside broadcasts, such as the Pope, Pope John Paul, Nelson Mandela. Yes. I'm just going to say them as I remember them. The national and state funerals, the state funerals, I think I've covered all since 1977. I should tell you, a little miss walked up to me. She was about 12 or so. I can't remember which funeral it was that I had done. And she came up to me and she said, you do all of these things my mother's telling me. So who is going to do yours? I said, I don't have that kind of funeral. I would not want that. But, she was really, it was so sincere. The mother kind of said, I said, no, I said, leave her. It's okay. Hear me to me. Oh, I'll kill she. I'll try to kill me off right now. So anyway. So some wonderful things happen, like that I have to tell you, although it is theater, waiting on a queue in Port Maria to be hoisted up through the window to go into the church for the rope and the cross. And I'm on a ladder, and Tenny Miller, the stage manager, is trying to get me up. And the woman, every time he hoist me, she pull me down. Every time he hoist me, she pull me down. And then I said, what is that? She said, when you go back at town, you can send greetings for me. Okay. That is the reality of what we do, especially when the two things run together. Pulling me down, Tenny was fit to be tied. So she wanted greetings then, and she recognized me and me for saying greetings for her. And so, yeah, so back to the media. What being in media also did, it opened up other opportunities, but some of them really started when I was in high school. Like I did my first commercial, Adrian Robinson, he was with CGR at the time, Carter Gamble.
Yeah.
Came to St. Hugh's High School looking for voices for a Canada Dry commercial. And we had a strong choir. So 4 of us were chosen from the choir to, I think we had to sing the thingamabob, and also I got a speaking part about. I got 3 guineas for that commercial. I was in 3rd form. How many of you, make a note of it so you can ask me what 3 guineas are, so that I can tell you. It was a lot of money, especially a country girl who was coming to town, our mother and our grand. 3 guineas I got for that commercial. So when I started out in media, I started doing more commercials as well. And then in 1976, the late, and I'm saying the late because many of these people are older than me, the late Desmond Elliott was invited to MC the Carnival Queen show at the University of the West Indies. Long before we had Jamaica Carnival with Barony and the Dragonaires, that's where Carnival was, the pulse of Carnival. That was the only place of Carnival. And it was big, and people, graduates would come on the campus for the 7 days or whatever. And he invited me to co-host with him, co-MC with him, the Costume Queen show, 1976. And that is where my life started as a master of ceremonies. And I've had the opportunity of being the master of ceremonies for so many events. Then from master of ceremonies, compare, and from that, an orator. So all the national and state events that I've done over the years, like national honors and awards, if there's an orator needed at King's House for the swearing in of the Prime Minister or the Governor General, or if the Governor General is having a dinner for the diplomatic corps. Yeah. So I go to these things. Yeah. Dinner for the diplomatic corps.
Got a lot of fancy clothes in your closet, lady.
I had a gentleman friend in my life at one time, who said to me, I can feed you, but I can't clothe you. Because a lot of what I do, and the people here who have anything to do with media understand that it's a lot of, you had close for Anchor TV News, close to the morning time. So the late Lindy Della Penna and I were great friends, and we were co-hosts on morning time, close for MC things, close for just close. It is bad. I have that. But it's not, I'm a close person. I'm not. I will wear the same jeans and everything for 1 week or 2 weeks. I'm talking about the jobs that I have.
Yeah.
Caused that to happen, Anyway, and so what that also did too is that because I had done theatre first, I didn't have any certification in media away from what I had got from the British Broadcasting Corporation. So in my early 30s, I went to the University of the West Indies to be certified. First of all, I did the diploma. And because I've had the working experience and the training at BBC, when I was finished with the diploma, the May or whatever it is, 1985, Alma Markian, who was in charge of radio at Carmack, said to me, would you mind joining the teaching staff to teach summer school? And that's how I started the Caribbean, which is now Caribbean School of Media and Communication. And it was a full 4 weeks. I would start at 9, break for lunch, but would go up until 5 every day for 4 weeks. It was amazing summer school. And then from summer school, I got involved in the main program. And between 85, part-time adjunct, then I went full-time, and I retired in 2018, full-time. I still teach part-time now for the last 2-3 years. And now it's different because, you're teaching by Zoom. and
Mm-hmm.
people's lives. And there are some real challenges. I was discussing with a colleague of mine just this afternoon who was former director of Caramat, Canute James. I said, Canute, because there's a group I'm teaching now, and he taught them the first half of the semester. I said, there are some real challenges here because I set the assignments, I put them up on Auraveli, which is the program we use. And if there's a power cut when that student wants to upload, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If there's internet challenges, because my students for this group, one is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, one is in Barbados, one is in Trinidad and Tobago, the others are Jamaican. And the thing is, it fluctuates. And so I was discussing, we have to be so much more lenient now because Carmack, as Noel will tell you, we don't put up with foolishness. Deadlines are deadlines. And some of us give zeros if you're late, because I often say to the students, you turn on, yes, zero. When you turn on the television, whether it is BBC, NBC, TVJ, whatever, and you for 7 o'clock news or 8 o'clock news, you don't see an empty chair and somebody saying, "What chair now?"
Just give her 5 minutes.
Or that one got caught in traffic. Let me tell you what happened to me one evening when I used to anchor TV news. It was 80s or 90s, don't remember. But we used to have whole heap of power cuts then. And so when you're power cut, going to Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, you have to go into halfway tree. And it's from Devon House, that traffic light intersection, down to the half. It was a mess. So you have to leave out early. And I always did that. But I was caught for about an hour. You hear me tell you? And I'm seeing the time running. And what am I? And I put the car on the sidewalk right outside of Bethel Baptist Church and run to JBC. That's the kind of dedication we're talking about. Anything that you must be passionate enough. I remember one morning when I was living in Havendale, the driver didn't come for me. I don't know what happened. And this is when I used to do the early morning show. It meant getting up at 4 o'clock every morning and getting to the station to open the station. As we say, I was at 3:30, and I'm saying, but I have to get to work. And it was dark, and it was we are talking about the late 70s, early 80s crime, right? And I walked out of my yard and walked up and got to Manningsill Road, afraid. So till, and I said, I have to get, and I hear an engine come down from the Smoky Vale end, and I said, God, I want to go in the shadows, but I want to come up, and I kind of stand up half and half, and it was Hugh Cross still going in for sports. We took off, man. But that is if you're really passionate about what you do, and I tell people, any day you stop loving what you do, any day the enthusiasm goes, leave it, move on to something else, whatever that it is. Move on to something else, because in those days too, I was doing plays, and the plays were going to Savlamar on a Sunday evening and coming back, and I have to be at the station for 4:30 on them. So I would come in, the driver, the transportation that we use for the play would drop me off at JBC, and I sleep on the floor in the studio for 1 or 2 hours, get up, go downstairs, wash my face, comb my hair, brush my teeth, get the program on. Good morning. It's time for the morning ride. I just have been lucky. I've been lucky for the people who influenced me. Leonie Forbes. Easton Lee, you perhaps only think of him to do with theatre, but he was also in broadcasting. I mentioned Bobby Gisses. You think of him perhaps in theatre, but he was also the manager of television at JBC. Wycliffe Bennett, you perhaps only think of him in theatre. He was one of my general managers at the JBC. You get what I'm saying? So in a funny way, it's not just my life had parallels. Those people, Dwight Wiley, when I joined in 1974, Dwight Wiley was a general manager. He was the first Black newsreader on BBC. Do you understand? So I had wonderful role models, wonderful trailblazers. Can you imagine sitting in the production department? Listen to this, another crossover theater and radio. Guess who's in the production department with me? Miss Lou, the most honorable Louise Bennett Coverley. I have to show, no, I'm not joking, I have been lucky. So you understand that I'm into my place here. Enough book there. Enough book, I can't help myself. Enough book, because books are my life. Not just academic book. So Miss Lou, Jamaica Labrish, she gave me this, and she wrote in it, you see? Let me tell you now, this is priceless. She wrote in this book, she says, to Faye, never mind, she spelled the Faye wrong. To dear Faye Ellington, with sincere compliments and best wishes, that she will keep on Legar Labrish pon the morning ride. Louise Bennett, the 18th of December, 1980.
Oh, goodness. That's amazing.
So I have been lucky. But I didn't just find my place, find myself in a place with them. I learned from them. I learned from them. And these people were very good. Tell me when you want me to shut up and then you can ask questions. Yeah.
No,
So
finish your thought.
that's it. That's because I was told that you want me to focus on broadcasting, hosting, and all of that, and interviewing. I think I've pretty much said quite a bit about most of it. So for those of you who want to ask questions,
no, yes, I'll open up the floor. I think I'd love to ask the first question and ask you
sure.
in terms of your work as an interviewer, because that is an art. I think. And there are some people who just walk in and throw questions and it's so dry and so unattached. And I would love to know, I don't know, maybe 5 little pieces of advice.
Research.
Or 3. Okay. All right.
Research. I would pull all my books up. Research. Whether it is a hard news interview, and sometimes a hard news interview might be a little easier for you to handle because you know what the issue is. But you're doing a personality interview, you have to find out about that person. And by the way, not everything you read online is accurate. I can tell you that for myself. Some young lady did come and interview me at Carmack years ago, a young reporter. And next thing I know, well, there are 2 pieces of very wrong information out there for me. One is that about 1950. I know me old, but we're not that old. About 1950. 3, and the other one is that I have dyslexia. No, I know a lot, but that is not one of them. And I told this young lady that I have asthma. How she could have confused asthma with dyslexia?
Yeah, because I'm like, as far as I know, it's asthma.
That's how I came to Kingston at 9+, because I was asthmatic. I'm way in the hills of Clarendon, then in the hills of down in the valley. So, you know, and research. Preparation. You have an interview must have a focus. What you want to talk about and why you want to talk about this. What you want to know and how are you going to manage the time that you have. You can do a lot of good with a 5-minute interview. You can do a lot of bad with a 5-minute interview, right? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10, 15? Is it half an hour? How are you going to move this thing? How are you going to start it? How are you going to end it? That kind of thing. So the research, the questions. I tell my students very often that when people complain that the guest was bad or difficult, usually it is the interviewer. Particularly if you may not have done your research properly. That's one thing. You may not have put your questions right. You've asked closed-ended questions. And if someone is not comfortable with media, they're doing it for the first time, and you say to them, so did you go to school? Them say yes, and shut up. Were you there? So
next question.
Are you? Those are closed-ended questions. There's a place for them, you know. But other than when you want people to talk, why you did that? Explain circumstances. Describe so and so, you know. Those are open-ended questions. But I tell people all the time, do not blame the interviewee. Very often, it's the person sitting across from them interviewing them. And then you have to also get their trust. Particular kinds of interviews, you have to get their trust. There are people who will not allow one person to interview them, but may allow somebody else to interview them because they don't trust them. Right? And even though they know it's going to be heard by thousands of people, maybe even more than that, they have to trust you to be able to talk with them with respect.
The person they're sharing the space with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Know how you're going to start, like any good essay or story, and know how you're going to end, like any good essay or story. You know, so these are some of the tips I would give. Oh, somebody says, as a fellow university student, I can relate. Kobe, okay.
Okay.
My gentleman friend. You see, the person who said my gentleman, yes, Justine. Yeah, hey, Justine! Come down to your, anyway, this is not matter. Toss you off this. Yeah, my gentleman friend speaks about my age group. It also speaks about my socialization, because remember now, many of my friends were 10, 15, 20, 25 years older than me. Buddy Puyat, Leonie Forbes, Easton Lee.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of, I just learned from them, and a lot of it was just listening and observing. So
yeah. Does anyone else have a question? I guess maybe raise your hand in the chat, and then I'll call your name and you open up your, or with your hand. So Tony has a question. Go ahead.
goodness, Hendrix! Oh my God! Put him here.
My dear.
Something before I forget. I have nothing to do. Yes. Well, Hendrix, you talk, and then I'll say what I want to say.
I'll just ask a question and let you talk.
No, man. Go on ahead.
I was going to say there's a couple of things. Apart from perhaps one of the first and most important things is when I was starting out in Jamaica doing little bits of stand up and stuff. And I think I can't remember if it was the first place that we met was at a show at the big old Mutual Life building. I remember having the conversation with Faye that later resulted in her calling me and asking me to start doing writing and recording radio monologues for her radio show, which then became which I something Sunday something or another, and
on JBC Radio 1 between 12 and 2 every Sunday afternoon.
That what she said.
Actually, me look at the bookcase for your book.
And so that started. That was me and Lovin' Dear, and we alternated Sundays, and then sometimes Lovin' Dear wasn't able to do it, so I started doing it more regularly. And so Faye was very much part of that. Was that the person who said, right, you come and do this, and just it was one of those making things a self-fulfilling prophecy by just saying, you're funny, write it, do it, and we will just have fun and do it. And so that then became later Paleface Point of View, and on and on and on. So she was very a big part of that starting of me doing what I'm doing.
Thank you for that, because you made me remember a very important segment of my life, and that was the Sunday Swizzle series of programs.
Right.
When I interviewed people, including politicians like Pernell Charles, and I did a fantastic interview with Michael Manley, right? And so, that interview we used to do the programs from the poolside of the Wyndham Hotel.
Yep.
But with Michael Manley, I couldn't take him to the poolside so I did it in his bedroom at his home, and it wasn't when he was ill. When I arrived with the Marjorie Wiley, I had live music. Marjorie Wiley, that great woman, iconic woman, Marjorie Wiley, was a live, we had keyboards, everything had to go to the poolside of the Wyndham. And when we arrived at his home, we thought we were going to be doing it downstairs in maybe the den or whatever. He says, no, go. Because you see, he had been in media. He had worked at the British Broadcasting Corporation. So he knew that the acoustics and everything in the bedroom would have been better. And yes, his wife was there, okay?
Yeah.
But that was a series of the Sunday Swizzle was an amazing series. I did all kinds of people. And really, that is where Tony and I really connected properly. What I was about to say when I saw Tony's face was, and it had nothing to do with the production where he played Jesus. Yes, he played Jesus, but it was baby Jesus. And my entire career life almost ended on opening night at the Little Theatre when I saw Tony giving birth to himself. You guys would have to see that on the sound I'm talking about. All of the stage just went, oh, Jesus. Jesus, in truth.
Job done.
It's been a pleasure. Your book is here, Tony, but I don't.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. This is about you. But one of the important things also was Faye's, not just the encouragement and being instrumental in hopefully recognizing talent, but allowing you to find yourself and to do your things. And that is a great part of her teaching, is the fact that she would never let it go. She would call me when I was doing Paleface Point of View. She would call me on the Sunday after the show and said, yes, no, you need to do this, and you need to just sort of, when your delivery needs to be like this and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but and she said, no, this is what I'm telling you because I am seeing it and you are not. and to the point that one time, and I think it was Blacker's book of poetry that was the launch at the Red Bones.
Red Bones.
I am on stage and I am reading two of the poems, and so I read one, and went over very well, and then I ad-libbed something about Blacker, and then I am just kind of taking a pause, just ready to read the next one, and I just hear Faye sitting about 3 seats in, going, "Take a breath, hold yourself, relax, and then go." I hear all of this. She's not thinking, it's coming out her mouth. Instructed and directed me from off the stage.
Tell you this, the late Louis Marriott always said to me, "You are a director. You need to direct."
For real. But it's all done with love. There's no question about that. It's done with the best intentions, and it's done with love, and only ever to make what it is that you're doing better. Maximum respect to you, Faye. It's lovely to see you, and that's why I'm here, without a shadow of a doubt.
I love you deeply and dearly.
Same, ditto.
I interviewed him too, anyway.
That was fun. That was fun.
Any other
yes, S. Woodhouse, would you like to turn on your camera and ask your question directly?
Yeah, I'm seeing the question there, but I'd like to see the person.
Oh, we would like to see your face.
Oh,
or your voice.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you, and I'm seeing your question in the chat as well.
Yeah, my camera isn't working right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was curious, as I want to be a director, but I guess this is a translatable skill. How do you go about disarming, I guess, and let them be more open and receptive to you and your question?
You remember the word I used earlier? Trust. The guest has to trust you. Tony will tell you, because he was on the other side and being interviewed by me. I would say to him, "Is there anything you don't want to talk about?" And if he said, "I don't want to talk about the time when I broke my finger," then I'm not going to talk about the time he broke his finger. And there are times when somebody might say to you, "Yeah, I don't mind talking about something," and you, being the experienced media person, might need to say, "Maybe that wouldn't be wise right now," because you're seeing the effect it might have on young children or a partner, or you understand what I'm saying to you? But it comes by, you don't just get somebody, flip them in the seat and say, "Hey, let's go." I talk with, and I never give people questions. I give them a brief. Questions makes a thing staid, S-T-A-I-D, and staged, and the spontaneity is lost. But you need to give them a brief. Want to talk to you about your life as a comic or whatever it is, you need to give them a brief. And so I do a pre-interview with my guests, I talk with them. Sometimes the talk is an hour and a half, because it's not just about the interview, you're learning about them. And when you learn about them, you learn, okay, that person has a sense of humor, or that person, and you learn about them. So you're able now, when you are sitting down to plan your interview, you can incorporate all that you've learned, not just how to ask a question, but who is this person? So it is not to be taken lightly. I tell my students, and I can only go back there, that an interview is not a chat under a mango tree. Both of them have to do with conversation, but one of them has to be planned and prepared and researched. A chat under a mango tree, where you have sit down with the 6 mango in your hand, in the basin pan, and anything can come anytime. Interview is not that. I hope that I was able to answer you somewhat, Mr. Woodhouse.
Yeah, that does give me insight. So it's basically, I guess, finding connection with that person, and then it's like,
trust. It's like I'm working with a director. I can't work with a director for theater who I don't trust.
Okay.
And I was fortunate to have some fabulous directors when we were all young, like Trevor Rohn, and they were all different, Lloyd Record, who every other word out of his mouth was about. Right? I remember when I first met you, I was about 19 and up at the New Architecture Theatre, and I'd gone up there for rehearsal, and he was working a scene that I wasn't in, and I just crept out of the theatre and went home, because I was young and wasn't accustomed to all this bad word cussing.
Oh, my ears.
And then next thing I know, when the rehearsal done in family, and he says, "Oh, Dad, what the fuck is wrong with you? Come on." Right? And I'm there, those days, I would go, anybody cussing around me. Or the opposite now is Trevor Bone. Me and the late Carl Bing are not two-handed. So they get me into theater again, but we're rehearsing, and Trevor is sitting in the thing, and we're not here, not when we look, Trevor fast asleep. So I look on Carl look on me. Trevor realized I'm not talking. I'm going. He said, I think you better go home and do some work on this. Okay, see you tomorrow. So, I mean, anyway, let's go back to broadcasting.
Miss Jafter, would you like to ask your question directly?
Hi everyone. Miss Ellington, if you had to interview yourself, what would be one of the key questions you would ask to learn about the real Faye Ellington?
That's an interesting question. I'm actually preparing my memoirs now. And it's something that I've been doing a long time ago. And things happen that, when I'm writing and something happens and take me off, all 2 weeks I don't go back to it because I'm into something, which is what happened recently. People think, I had to tell a woman recently who called me from overseas about 3 months ago, who contacted me, and she wanted me to appear on, the Jamaican associations. They cannot now bring people up, so they do it by Zoom. And so she asks me if I would do a particular thing. So I said to her, no, I couldn't do that at that time. And she got back in touch with me and said, all right, so I'm going to ask you to do a comedy thing. I said, comedy thing? Stand-up comedy? I said, no. I said, I'm not a stand-up comedian. I said, I can be very funny in full flight, but I'm not a stand-up comedian. That is one of the things I'd like people to know. I can be very funny, and it's my life's experiences that I will draw on as I'm on stage emceeing something, I see things and they trigger things in my head, and people are falling all over, but I couldn't do what Tony does. You have to know yourself. That them plan them things and them work it out and thing. Mine is spontaneous. It happens in the moment. So that's one of the things I would want people to know. And also that I am a shy person, but I've managed it. I have managed. Yeah. Yes, nobody believes that. Very shy and very fool and very but I've been able to, I am much better and lacking in confidence. Oh my God, I lacked confidence. It was not until I got into my, no kidding now, 40s, I'm now 67. You camouflage this thing and you find ways and means of covering it over. But I had to work on myself. I said, you can't go through life with this thing. Afraid. So, one of the things is because I ended up being a public speaker as well. Now, when you're on stage, you're acting with somebody else, whether it's Tony or whatever it is, you're acting with somebody else. So you have support. When you're a public speaker, you one and God. And so for years, I'm doing it and I'm accepting. And that is what I say to people: accept the invitation, but you're going to plan, right? And if you plan and prepare, and you have somebody assist, you're never as bad as you think you are. But there's always room for growth and improvement. I mark hard because I have very high standards, and because the people who influenced me in my early days did not allow me to get away with stuff. They marked me hard, but with love. And I know that they loved me and they wanted the best for me. So the late Wycliffe Bennett, he would come to the theater and would still say to me, little one, come on, little one, that was good. But they didn't joke, And in broadcasting, let me tell you what Wycliffe Bennett did when he was general manager of JBC. You could have been the best newsreader and the best reporter and the best on-air presenter and the best announcer. He called classes every Saturday. And you better go, because if you don't go, him take you off of the air. Because there's always room for improvement. Wycliffe Bennett, man. Is there anything else?
Does anybody else have a question?
Or a comment?
Justine has a question.
Hey, Miss Faye.
Friend, how are you?
I am very good. I just wanted to say that, you are an icon. You are precious. Love and adore you. And one of the things that I find that you do so effortlessly is code switch. Sorry, car is driving out. you can be in, the ballroom at King's House, and you'll be speaking the Queen's English one sentence, and then you're in deep Jamaican English the next sentence. And you can be always appropriate and yet always culturally specific. And being able to do that is such a joy to watch, somebody who can do that so effortlessly. And us as filmmakers, writing scripts and delivering to an audience that we hope is international, it's something that we could all learn from you, because you do that so well. And I just want to say thank you for being an example to all of us who need to present Jamaica to the world and have it accessible and yet very specific. And you do that so well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. You just made me remember the late Ken Maxwell, pro rata Powell. I don't know how many of you in this setting would know about. He lived in Knockpatrick in Manchester, and he had a son, Ken, not Ken, name soon come back. Anyway, he was the one who first brought that to my attention, that I did that so effortlessly. He wrote me a letter. I was, the JCDC used to have, in addition to Festival Song and Festival Queen and Tarnal, something called Bragadap. And he wrote me a letter, which I have, because I intend to put some of those things in my memoirs, where he said that my ability, he didn't call it code switching, but to move from one language to the other was remarkable. This could have been in the 70s or early 80s. And then I started to check myself in terms of what was I doing? But I want to share something with you. I came out of the hills of Clarendon, my mother and my grandmother and my cousin, 4 years older. That was our family unit. We were not allowed to speak Jamaican language at home. So it was when I come at all, when I 9+, and not even at that point, when I got into St. Hugh's High School, not even quite so much then, but I'm observing and absorbing and stuff, because when I'm at St. Hugh's and we're doing plays, it is American plays or British plays or whatever, and it would not have been accepted that me I go say to the teacher or to somebody, make the teacher hear me say, "So you're going to lunchroom now?" No, that would not have been accepted. Remember, I come as town right after we get independence. We get it the August 6th, and I came because the school year used to be January to December. That's another thing that some of you don't know. The school year used to be January to December, and it was that period of 62 or 63 that it changed. So some of us lost a semester, and it's like pound, shilling, and pence was what we used right up until night. Somebody has to tell me what is the guinea as well. I got paid 3 guineas for my first ad when I was 13. All right, I'm not making a getaway with that. So pound, shilling, and pence is what we used right up until September 1969. So the colonial thing, the dead end. But I don't know what it was. I don't know if it is when I left school and got involved in theater, but we were not well away from, what did we do? Was it Blue Bear that we did as one of our student productions? But yeah, but I recognize there was and then Miss Lou, and I recognized that there was something of beauty in being able to move from one into the other with this kind of dexterity. And I encourage people to do it, because there are times when that you need to do, and that time you need to go back to where you need to be, as Justine said. But I think it's a gift in a sense. And when people like Justine or the late Ken Maxwell raised it with me, that is when I stop and think. And even now, because it is my natural way of communicating, mark you, if I'm doing the diplomatic dinner thing, I don't go into it at all. But or certain things don't call for it, but it's just natural for me. I will, in the middle of a sentence, move from English to Jamaican. It is like Pierre Lemire and his household, because he's French. The children speak French, English, and Jamaican, and the one of them. So in the middle of a sentence in French, then we go in Jamaican, just heavy, deep Jamaican, with sound like this as now. And then come back out and go in English. Is that it?
Oh goodness. I don't know if does anyone else?
Oh my gosh,
Any
Tony.
questions before? Yes, you seeing Tony's comment.
When she cuss you in Jamaica, and then when she gets stern and lecture you, it's true. It's true. One of my students 2 years ago, usually at the end of the radio documentary series, Canute James and myself, we teach them that we have a nice event for them. We choose the top 2 documentarians, and this one I brought over the principal and bring over and all kind of people you invite. And we tell them that you can say whatever you want to say, and we mean that. And when the young lady, I'll never forget, she says, and Miss Ellington, this, and we can't go to her class later, and she's sweet but savage. I sat there and I said, you know, this girl, right? She's right. And I've never heard it put like that before. To me, I'll never forget her. Girl. She says she's sweet but she's savage.
I feel like I want to make you a t-shirt that says that for you to wear. Sweet but savage. Well, I mean, I don't, if no one else has any more questions, I'm gonna bring in our next guest, but close off. Faye, you're more than welcome to stay, by the way, even when I bring in Marcus. Please know that.
I want to.
But I just wanted to say no, but deepest thanks for joining us today, for giving us your time, for giving us, I feel like a crash course.
No, they have to tell me what is 3 guineas.
Who knows what 3 guineas is?
1 guinea was 21 shillings. The 3 pounds and
Tony
3
said 3 pounds and 3 shillings. Tony, that's cheating. That's cheating, Tony.
All like a mayor. I make him know. But a guinea was 21 shillings. Can you imagine me getting that in 3rd form? And it's straight that me get. Me walk past Morin shoe store in a crossroads about 2 weeks. I look on the patent leather black shoes when me want to buy. But me have to carry on money to my mother. And I used some of that money eventually to buy a pair of patent leather black shoes, and then took home the rest to my mother and my grandmother.
That's a good girl. That's a good girl. Many would have run off and spend the whole night. Oh, but thank you, Faye, and I hope everyone listened to very key points about being open to learning, about being the fact that there's always something to learn and you can always grow, to be prepared, to find a space of trust with people that you're interviewing. I hope that you guys held on to those really key and important notes that she shared with us throughout this meeting. And remember, we're recording, so if you need to go back and watch it again, go back and watch it again. But I will now transition over to Marcus. Thank you so much for your patience. I saw you popped in early. I'm going to introduce him first, and then I'm going to just let him run with it. Okay. Marcus James is an actor and performer. He spent his formative years in Jamaica, where he balanced intense artistic training with his scholastic activities. After graduating from the University of the West Indies with first-class honors in media and communication studies, he moved to the United Kingdom, where he forged a path in the entertainment industry. To date, he has worked with Walt Disney in The Lion King, has done a multitude of commercial projects, as well as lead and featured roles in theatrical projects such as Aida, The Mahabharata, Carmen, and Death in Venice. He has also had guest star, feature, and lead roles in shows such as Game of Thrones, screamed when I saw him turn up and I never knew he was going to be in it, on HBO, in shows where he played the character White Rat, and the 2020 UK dramatic docuseries Mummy Mysteries, where he played the role of Akhenaten. Marcus, you can pronounce that. Marcus is passionate about the arts and his craft, but in addition, he has a profound interest in health and fitness, self-development, and community work. Immediate upcoming project roles include lead and featured parts in projects for a variety of streaming services, as well as projects which will target the International Film Festival circuit. And now he's going to tell us what this role was in the Mummy Mysteries. Pronounce it.
Akhenaten.
That. So Marcus, you have been acting, I feel like, practically your whole life. And your
is
journey
everything
started
working? Like, is the camera on and stuff? And
yeah, man, I see you.
Okay,
I hear
good.
everything.
All right, cool. Yeah.
But you started your journey in Jamaica. It took you to London. Now you're in LA. And that is the dream of many. And few succeed. And I just wanted you to talk to everyone here just about that journey, what started you off on it, pitfalls, highs. And then I'll throw some questions at you from the group when you're... Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying. And thanks for Ellington for an extremely educational moment. So it started with the Little People and Team Players Club, basically. And I heard about an audition for this company and I went in. And I had never done an audition like that before, but I prepared anyway to the best of my abilities. And Paulette Bellamy did the audition and Kathy Levy. And, you know, they were behind a table and they asked me to sing and I sang a little bit. And then they asked me to stand in the corner of a room and then call some people. What would I do if I was on stage and I needed to call people to meet me on the other side and I couldn't use my hands? So then I did something dramatic like this. Or something like that, you know, just for them to just a motion for them to come over. Anyway, so I got in, and that being in that company really gave me a sense of purpose and direction. I'm not exactly sure. I would have done something, but I'm not exactly sure what my path would have been if it wasn't for Little People, to be completely honest with you. And it's one of those moments where I guess fate just took hold. Because I always knew that I had talent inside, you know, when I was a kid, like I was running around and doing all these crazy things. And so being in Little People really provided a sense of focus and provided the ability to really tap into something that I knew that was there, but didn't know how to harness it. The interesting thing is that I could have gone in either direction because at the time I was also doing sports. My dad was involved in coaching hockey in Jamaica. He used to work with the national team. And basically, when I was 13, I got home and I saw a hockey stick on my bed. And that was basically his indication that I was going to train as a hockey player. So I actually did start training as a hockey player, and I was reasonably good, I would say. And I could have gone that direction. I also did track. I did 100, 200 meters, hurdles, and I was really, really good. I went to Calabar, and the coach used to hunt me down to try and join the track team. I used to hide from him because I wasn't sure, because I really wasn't sure that that's what I wanted to do. But he used to come to my class and he used to stand up at the door and look, you know, where is Marcus? So I could have gone either direction. So going into Little People is what really solidified that decision for me, to go into the arts and not into sports, because I was at a crossroads, and I was about to join that track team, then got into Little People, and that was that. So the reason why I went into Little People anyway was because I used to see people on television and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be on TV. I didn't know why. I was like, I can do that. You know, I think I'm suitably dramatic. Like I can do stuff like that. So I went into the audition, and then I turned up at the company, and there was just this intense focus on dance. And I looked around and I was like, what the hell is going on? You know, it's like all these talented kids, but there was just so much dance. And I was like, man, I don't really know if this is what I want to do. But at that moment, it was sink or swim. You know, there were so many talented people, and it was up to me to stick with them and to really delve into that aspect of the arts, even though it wasn't what I was planning for, or sink in the background and eventually have to leave the company. So I stuck with them. And I think my athleticism is what helped with my dance, because, you know, I could do the leaps and the turns and anything athletic. So that really helped with dance. I didn't intend to become a dancer, but that's what happened initially. And then I joined LACADCO, University Dance Society. I'll skip a few subjects. And then I went to England to pursue a career in film production and direction, which actually helps now, which I'll get back to. But then I was going to come home to Jamaica after that. And this is another point where fate comes into it. Noelle, I got a call from your sister, Robin, after not having spoken to Robin, I don't know, 2-3 years, something like that. And she randomly called. I was about to leave England to go back to Jamaica. She called and said, hey, Marcus, they're auditioning for We Will Rock You. You need to go and do that audition. And I was like, okay, I'll go. I went to We Will Rock You. I didn't get We Will Rock You, but the casting director for We Will Rock You is the same casting director as Lion King. And she plucked me out of that and took me to the Lion King. I'm not gonna lie, I did about 10 auditions to get into that show. They were seeing me for Simba cover. They were seeing me for this. Then they were having a problem finding, and actually I was about to get Simba cover. I didn't know that until 6 months into the contract. Anyway, so it was done between me and another guy, Matt Henry, for Simba cover for The Lion King in London. And the deciding factor was who could dance better. So whoever was a better dancer would be hired as a dancer, and then the other guy would do the Simba. Matt was already in the show, so he had that inside information. I didn't know that. All I knew was that I needed to get into this show. So I went to the dance audition and killed it because I was like, this is like my 10th audition. I was like, I need to get in. Lo and behold, I got the dance track, and 6 months into the contract, Matt came up to me and said, you know, they were actually going to give you Simba understudy, but because you went to the dance audition and killed it, they gave it to me and they gave you the dance track. I was like, it's all good. You know, I got into the show. It was an amazing experience. And I owe Robin, honestly, I mean, I owe her really my life's path, because
Wow.
from the life, and that's not an exaggeration, because I actually did come back to Jamaica, and I was in Jamaica for quite a few months. And then I got a call from Disney in London saying, hey, we want to hire you, come back. And that's when I went back. So had Robin not told me about that, you know, I mean, I'm sure I would have been okay anyway. But, you know, in terms of where I am now, that is what set off that whole chain of events. Okay, so I'll skip forward a little bit. So after that, I've worked with English National quite a few times. I did a production with them called Gaddafi, A Living Myth. That was primarily a dance role as well, with some acting. Worked with Royal Opera quite a few times. And then when it switched to acting was when I went to audition for the Mahabharata at Sadler's Wells Theatre. And I went into audition as a dancer, as for a backup track. And this is when it switches from that Lion King story. Okay, so here's when it switches. I went to audition for the dancer, and I was walking out of the room, and they called me back and said, hey, Marcus, can you read for this part? You know, the guy that's playing this role, he kind of looks like you, and, you know, read for this part anyway. So I read, and I was reading the script, and in the moment, I was like, wow, like, I think I'm doing quite well. Like, I had something clicked inside, you know, and I was like, these lines are intense, and I'm really being this character. So I surprised myself. And the next day they called, and they were like, oh, we know you came into audition for the dance role, but we'd like to offer you the lead. So I went from doing dance to immediately being in front of 3,000 people a night. And there was a part of the show where I was really on stage for about 5 to 7 minutes, maybe 8, by myself, commanding the entire audience. I had to do a song, I had to do a soliloquy. It was exceedingly dramatic. And I was like, wow, like this is really something. So that makes up for the Lion King thing. That's a whole turn of events. From there, I just zoned in on acting. I started to do a lot of television commercials. I've done commercials for Nokia, a global campaign for them, Freddy Sports in Italy, Cadbury's, Heineken, just a lot, you know, a lot. And then I ended up doing a film with Ashley Walters, who is now in Top Boy. Mm-hmm. And that film went on to the London Film Festival, etc., continued acting. And in between this, you know, I want to be realistic with people who are listening to this. I did have part-time jobs. So I took up a job at a real estate company. I was working in real estate. I've worked in gyms. I've worked in all over the place. I worked at the Science Museum once, and then they fired me. I quit before they fired me because I knew they were going to fire me, because I was constantly checking my phone because I had to check for auditions. So I'd be sitting at that counter where you sell tickets, and I'd be like, somebody would be in front of me buying a ticket, and I'm literally like this. I'm like, sorry, 1 second, like, and then doing the tickets and then going back. So that wouldn't work for them. So I quit, and then, you know, I quit and they fired me in the same thing. Anyway, so it doesn't matter. So then I got a job after that with a real estate company, and I stayed with that company for a long time because I had flexibility, and, you know, I did crazy things, like I wear my audition clothes to work with me and run in the bathroom and change and do an audition and come back. Speed up to Game of Thrones. I was at work and I did, on this day, it was, a crazy day as well. I was at work and I went into the bathroom to change into my audition clothes. Luckily, the audition place was maybe 3 blocks down the road. Went in, did the audition, went back to work, and I'll tell you about that audition in a minute. But anyway, so the day after, a friend called and I was on my lunch break and they were like, oh, how is it going? And I was like, yeah, same old, same old. Hung up the phone, and 2 minutes after that, my agent called and she was like, hey, you booked the recurring guest role for White Rat in Game of Thrones. So literally my life went from same old to immediately. Yeah, like so, so it switched in an instant, and then from there I had a fitting in 2 days, so they flew me up to Ireland, and it was literally like going from it was 2 different realities at the same time, because I was still working with the real estate company. So I would be showing people offices and helping them to find office space and renting office space and booking meetings. And then the next day I'm on a plane and I go to Ireland, and in Ireland they have like a blacked out Mercedes-Benz that comes to pick me up. And there's a guy standing at the Irish airport with my name, White Rat, Marcus James. And I go and have people taking my bags and they put it in the trunk. And I'm like, now I understand why superstars have an attitude, because it's not excusable, but honestly, if you're having this done for you on a repeated basis, it can get to your head. Anyway, the Mercedes would drive me to the hotel. I had people open the door for me when I got to the hotel, and I stepped in the hotel and immediately there was somebody to give me money for the day for me to spend. And I had a beautiful hotel room and everything. Did my fitting, and the next day in the Mercedes, got off at London Heathrow Airport and went back to moving tables to set up meeting rooms. So I was living a dual experience at the same time. But it was amazing. The whole Game of Thrones thing is really, they rented out an entire lot, a film studio in Northern Ireland. And when you drive through the gates, I want to paint this picture for you. Like, you can see the Unsulleds practicing their fights in the corner. So your car is driving through, and literally you have people running in front of the car, Unsulleds doing their thing. Then there is, what was his name? Grey Worm. You see Grey Worm like practicing his things. And then all the characters, like you literally just see all the fantasy. Imagine you go to a theme park like Disney, and all those characters that you see, Mickey Mouse and all of them, you see them walking around. It's the same with Game of Thrones. You see all of them, Tyrion, all of them walking around, and in their trailers. And I introduced myself, and it was really amazing. But the thing I have to say about that is that they film in Northern Ireland. They film basically on a work schedule. So they film from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So when you go in, they don't have time to coach you to be that character. Like literally, they say, okay, we're ready for you on set. So the first shot I did was the shot of me walking up to the harpy when it fell from the, when it fell down, right? So they just plunked me in this room full of sand, huge studio. I didn't know what scene I was doing. It was a green screen. I had some soldiers standing in the corner. There were my support actors. The directors were running around, and literally, this was me standing in the green room in the sand, and there were people just whizzing all around. I didn't have a clue what scene I was doing. I didn't know what lines I had to deliver. I didn't know what I was doing, and then all of a sudden they said action, and I was like, sorry, what scene? What? What scene are we doing? I was like, oh, Marcus, so sorry. And so the director came over and he explained the scene as like, you just have to walk up to the harpy, and your tribe has been freed, and et cetera, et cetera. You're jubilant. You're the leader of the tribe. You are on the same level as Grey Worm, but a different branch of the Unsullied. yeah, and so they said action. Now the interesting thing with that first scene that I recorded was that I had to sync up to a robot image that they had on their monitors, because it was all going to be done green screen. They were going to layer it in post-production.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an added thing, and that is where dance came in to play, because I had to walk for 4 steps, turn for 4 steps, all of that, all choreography and stuff. So that's where dance came into play. That was the most difficult scene to do because I was thrust in the middle of it. I did the audition. 2 days later, I was doing the fitting. A week later, I was literally standing in the sandpit with people whizzing around me, and, you know, people, the lead characters there, and the head of the, you know, everybody was just around, and I was like, you know, what the hell am I doing? Then after that, we did the death scene, and that was also interesting because I had a prosthetic neck. So, and you know, it was interesting being around these people, because the guy who was doing the prosthetic neck had literally just won an Emmy for best prosthetics, or was it a Golden Globes? I think it was an Emmy. Was it an Emmy? Yeah. Yeah,
You won an award.
We won a huge award. And so they were doing my prosthetic neck and talking about the Emmy and the Golden Globes and the Oscars and everything. And I was like, they were talking about it so matter of fact, you know, that you really do realize that it is attainable, you know, and the people who have won these awards are just the people who have put in work. There's some people who got lucky and their journeys are shorter as well, but the fact of the matter is that it's all very attainable, and it's not like some wishy-washy dream that exists out of the scope of anyone's reality, really. So as long as you have, don't forget to tell us about the audition. Okay, got it. I will. I'll go back to that. Thanks. So as long as you have that focus and drive, and you're realistic about your talent, and what you need to do to hone your talent and to really maximize your potential, it's all attainable. It really, really is all attainable. Okay, I'll go back to the audition. So my Game of Thrones audition was really, really quick. I imagined in my head, I got the script and I imagined in my head what the scene would be. I had to do the death scene for the audition. You know, they had their own language, you know, like I would say, in the film, in the show, it was Taft-Hartley. That's how they speak. They have their own thing, but I had to do it in English. So I went in, and exactly how I imagined it in my head is exactly what happened in the audition room. So I had the chair that I sat on. I walked in the room. I spoke to the whore of, you know, who killed me. I sat in the chair, had my eyes closed, and then she was singing a lullaby, and then I had to open my eyes and, you know, react to my throat being slit. And that's exactly as I imagined it happening. This was supposed to be a first audition, and they were gonna have like 3 callbacks after that for this role. So that audition was about 5 to 7 minutes. I left that audition, and the producers watched that tape and they canceled the callbacks, because they had found their guy. And so I did 1 5-minute audition for that huge role. But I was prepared, you know, I was prepared, certainly physically prepared. I was mentally prepared, and everything just aligned in that moment. And I got it. The producers called my agent and they were like, we were gonna have callbacks. There were a few hundred people that auditioned. I mean, certainly everybody, the casting breakdown was Middle Eastern, ethnically ambiguous, mixed, blah, blah, blah. So everybody who fits into that category would have auditioned for this. And I actually have run into a few people in audition rooms who did audition for that role. So it's definitely quite a lot of people. And I think they may have auditioned globally as well. In any case, they canceled the callbacks everywhere that they were doing. And I got it. And that was that was that. So where was I? So I was on the first day of filming. So the second day of filming was the death scene, and I had the prosthetic neck. as we say, what for you count on for you. Yes, thank you. So I had on the prosthetic neck, and really for this scene, I just had to recreate what I did in the audition, because what I did in the audition is exactly what they were looking for. And so I just had to recreate that moment there. I felt it was kind of weird because the girl who was playing my antagonist at the time, I know we're actually very good friends. It was more difficult for her because there was nudity for her, and she was in a room filled with people. And you could see how petrified she was, but she had a really big part as well. And so she had to do it over and over and over and over again from different angles for lighting, etc. So in that moment, all I could do was really just not mess up my part, so we didn't have to do it unnecessarily for her. So basically how we did the death scene was that they did the prosthetic neck, and under the prosthetic neck, they did a tube. So they ran the tube under the prosthetics, and they had the tube attached to a pump, which was offset. So I was lying on the bed, and there was a tube going through my prosthetics. And it was all coordination as well. So the guy did this, I opened my eyes, and as soon as I opened my eyes, the guy pumped the pump, and the blood came out. So, and that was that. And then the third, I did a few days, but the final day of filming was the best, because I got flown to Croatia, and I got to spend a whole week in Croatia, and all I had to do was walk down an alleyway, because we needed one external. So we needed one external scene, and I had to walk down an alleyway and enter the brothel, and we did that in half a day, and I had the rest as a vacation, and I had black squid ink risotto for the first time, and it was great, Yeah, and then after that, I went back to work at the place selling office space, and after that show debuted, that paved the way to come to LA. Immediately after it debuted, I was offered representation here, and came over, and I basically skipped quite a few levels because I had everything organized and set up for me. So literally when I came, I went straight into the audition room. I literally landed, and 2 days later, I was in the audition room, driving up to Burbank. The role I had an audition for an Egyptian god, and it was between me and another guy. I didn't realize at the time that I needed to be SAG or SAG eligible. I had no idea about this. So I came here in, I think 2017 was my first active year. And then I became SAG eligible in 2019, and how I became early 2019. And how I became SAG eligible was I did a production called Escape the Night, which was I played another Egyptian god. So that there is a theme. And basically from that, because I had a principal role in that, the producer called and said, hey, we're gonna give you something called a Taft-Hartley. And basically what a Taft-Hartley does, Taft-Hartley is a recommendation from a casting director or a producer to make you SAG eligible. And once you're SAG eligible, then you are in line to audition for all the big TV shows from Marvel and CBS and blah, blah, blah. So I have been consistently auditioning. I just had a casting for CBS, today's Thursday, on Tuesday, that I handed in. I've been auditioning for loads of productions for Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. Spell the word Taft-Hartley, Tafthartley.
No, psychological something. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
You got it?
Psychological, that one, not Taft-Hartley. Psychological.
Is it the psychology of it?
The psychology of it?
SAG.
Oh, SAG.
SAG eligible.
Oh, SAG eligible.
Okay. So basically, the SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. But to get into the Screen Actors Guild, you have to be invited into the Screen Actors Guild. You can't just go knock on them door and say, I'm an actor. I want to join the union. They literally have to They literally have to invite you. No, pardon my ignorance, but I didn't know. I didn't know to audition for, to even be considered for the larger television shows that you had to be a part of SAG or SAG eligible. Escape the Night was a SAG production, but because the guy wanted me, the casting director wanted me, the producer wanted me, sometimes they can hire an actor and make them SAG eligible. So that's basically what he did. He hired me, even though I was, somebody asked a question a while ago, I'll answer it. He hired me and as a non-union actor, and basically the Taft-Hartley then made me SAG eligible. And so I was able to do Escape the Night, and now I can be considered for all the other productions. I'm holding off on joining SAG for now, only because, you know, especially for commercials and stuff, there are some non-union jobs which pay quite well. And, you know, and the thing is, once you get into SAG, like, you can only do SAG, Screen Actors Guild jobs. So basically, I'm allowed to do 3 more SAG jobs before I have to join the Screen Actors Guild and pay their $3,000 joining fee and etc. Yeah, so it's a lot. And basically where I am now is just consistently casting, man. Like, just consistently casting. And, you know, I know I've done a lot, and I'm grateful for everything. At the same time, I'm now surrounded by people who were in Star Wars and who are doing Ballers on HBO and this. So I have to look forward, you know, I have to look in front of me in terms of what it is that I want to achieve. And I have the inspiration around me. I know that it is very, very tangible and very, very attainable. And, you know, but the thing is that I've also been working on this for many years. Even my training as a dancer prepared me in many ways for my acting, in terms of like my understanding of movement, in terms of my ability to hear direction and to take direction and to interpret scripts and to interpret the physicality of the actor. So I've been working on this for a very long time, and it's all coming together, and all I can do is really just go forward and do the best castings I can. One of the things that I've discovered in this lockdown as well is the importance of creating one's own material. And so Noel and I are having a discussion about something else, but I've been writing, and apparently I'm not bad, apparently, because I sent something that I wrote to a production company, and they're quite interested. So I'm just working out the kind of nuances of how productions happen and that kind of thing. So it's good to know that I do have the ability to write and create. I actually had the concept, and I was trying to persuade a friend of mine who's a writer to write it for me. But when I explained the concept to him, I explained it so vividly that he turned around and he said, "You can write it yourself." And that's the greatest gift that he ever gave to me, because now I've discovered a sense of independence with regards to my own creativity and that kind of thing. And so, my manager and stuff, they work extremely well in getting me castings, but I also have to be proactive in creating my own destiny and creating storylines that I think fit my narrative as an individual, etc. So that is an extremely important discovery that I've made in this aspect of my journey. And what else? All writers are actors, you have to be. Yeah, all writers are actors, you have to be. That's true. And so I think I'm in a great place. Certainly as it pertains to sticking with my craft. You know, I've booked enough jobs to know that I'm on the right path. I don't have to reassess things. It's not easy, you know. It's not easy. Like, do you have castings that come in and your manager is expecting you to book? Like, so there's that pressure as well. They're expecting me to book, so I have to be on my A game all the time, learning scripts, memorizing lines, tons of lines, have my little studio set up thing. So yeah, so it's a journey. The journey continues, and I'm at peace and working very hard and etc. So I think we can go to questions now, actually, because people have been
Yeah, you're kind of
asking
answering
things.
questions as you went, but if anyone has additional questions that they haven't thrown in there yet that they want to send Marcus's way. Did I lose my?
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Wow. Okay.
Faye would come with the big question.
Yeah. I have a very vivid plan in my head, and it's a plan that I repeat over and over. And I'm actually going to say something. A few years ago, I saw myself doing stuff like this, talking to people about my experience and doing interviews. And I have rehearsed the answers to these questions for many years, because I've played these interviews in my head. In Jamaica, when I was in Jamaica the last time, I had an interview for CVM, and I had a very quick response for every single thing that he asked because I've rehearsed those answers in my head because I saw myself there. So I have seen myself here, and here I am. In 10 years, I see myself having achieved maximization of who I am as an artist. And of course, there is always room for improvement beyond that. But I have an interest in continuing acting at the highest level, in film and television specifically, in the United States, because I'm here. But also I am signed in London as well. And there are a lot of productions that happen in London, so in both places. And at the highest level, whatever that means to you, and whether it means being on television in roles for HBO or CBS or Netflix, etc. That is what I am aiming for. That is what I have in my head. Films, etc. in lead and at the start, support roles that I will relish playing and that I connect with, meaty roles where I connect with the character. I also see myself writing more. I see myself developing that aspect of myself, developing my creativity. And I see myself acting as a mentor in terms of giving back my story to individuals who may find inspiration from that. Because there are a lot of nuances, a lot of little things in my journey that have come together to bring me to the point where I am. And a lot of it has involved, for example, giving up access to a certain lifestyle that I had in Jamaica. I grew up quite comfortably in Jamaica, and going to England, there were a lot of struggles that I went through that I haven't even told my family, but I went through a lot, a lot, like not having money for certain periods, blah, 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 etc. And so I think I don't understand both sides of the equation because I always had my family to support me, but I understand what it means to not need to have material comfort. Because the vision that you have in your head and the goals that you have for yourself are greater than the circumstance in which you find yourself in that present moment. And so I have that maturity within me now, mental maturity, to know that I can do with not having certain materialistic things around me because my destination is greater. And so I see myself sharing that message with people. I see myself being more active in Jamaica because I think Jamaica has a cultural life to it and a creativity to it, which will become a lot stronger in the coming years. And I'd like to be a part of that story, whether it means filming stories in Jamaica and helping to nurture Jamaican talent and or inspire Jamaican talent. And that's pretty much it. I see myself being happy and at peace in every facet of life. Yeah. You can tell I've rehearsed that answer, right?
Them lofty goals. The loftiest, being at peace with myself.
Yeah, but you have to have the big goals anyway to just aim for it, just go for it, without overthinking.
No, for sure.
Just
sure.
go.
For sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just have ideas and goals in my head, and I'm not overthinking it. Like I'm just on my path and I'll do my best to get there and just focus. And that's it. Yeah.
Charles, where you have to? Charles says, other than your squid black ink risotto, what would you say has been the highlight of your career so far?
Other than what, sorry?
The squid ink risotto. She's like, other than that, what's been the highlight?
Oh, that was a momentous occasion, honestly. And apparently it's quite a common dish as well. I was just making a big deal out of it.
Sounds fancy.
There are a few things, and I'll highlight the key moments. The Lion King, the Mahabharata, Game of Thrones, becoming SAG eligible via Escape the Night, I think are all things that kind of made me know that I was on the right path and where fate and preparedness kind of came into being. I would say those are the highlights.
What was your worst moment, do you think, so far?
Oh yeah, when I fell off the stage when I was auditioning for Cats.
Oops.
Yeah.
Did you anything?
So the very first audition I did in the UK was for a theater show called Cats, and I was dancing at the time, and I was doing dance classes. I did not land on my feet. I literally fell off the stage into a bush.
Oh no.
Anyway, so on the Cat stage, they have stuff around like foliage or fake foliage at the side of the stage. Anyway, so I was doing dance classes at this studio named Pineapple in London, and the student came up to me and they were like, "Oh, they're auditioning for Cats tomorrow. You should go." So I went to the Cats audition. Everybody had on their dance shoes. I went in barefooted. I grew up dancing barefooted in Jamaica, so it is what it is. I went in barefooted, whatever. So I was doing the audition. Tons of people on stage. Tons. I was doing this piece of the dance where you turn. You're doing Shanae turns and whatever. I literally just went poof. Off the stage, not on the stage. This was me, off the stage, into the bush, right? I climbed out, and only a few people had seen up until the point where the director stopped the audition and turned around to me and said, "You all right, mate?" And I said, "Yes, I'm fine." In my head, I was thinking, you really didn't have to stop. You really did not have to stop this audition. Really did. But I didn't leave. I stayed and I finished the audition and I walked out. And anyway, a few months after that, I got the Lion King. So that was
like, who on you cat? You got the bigger cat.
yeah, for sure. Somebody asked a question before.
Yeah. He said, in terms of building your brand going forward, what roles are you not interested in booking? That's from Miles.
Wow. Oh, that's an interesting. How do I answer this question? I know how to answer it. I just have to pick in my brain what I'm gonna say. I think the character that I played in Game of Thrones is a good indication of the type of stuff that I would relish playing. Certainly anything that has that kind of weight to it. God, that's a tough question. It's a tough question because a lot of the roles that I get sent up for are roles that I would play because my manager understands my casting type. So I get sent up for the doctor, police, army, anything Egyptian. Literally, the warrior. Occasionally, some kind of bad boy kind of thing, the lover, that kind of thing. I'm in that mold. So I haven't really done or been called up for any role that I would not do. There was a role that I did get called up for, in which I was a. Is it sadistic where you abuse people? Is that the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. And it was a very deep script that had to do with like human trafficking and all kind of stuff. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do that role, but I would have to be mentally prepared for that kind of thing. Because that's outside of anything that I've done before. So in terms of roles that I would want to delay playing, then it would be potentially that kind of thing. But for now, you know, a lot of the roles that I get called up for are things that I would do. So when I get confronted with that, then I will have the answer. I've actually been doing. Do I have an acting coach? I've actually been doing a lot of online classes. What I started doing when I got to LA was that I was watching YouTube videos on acting, and you can Google acting tips on, and I can send the information to you, Noel, after when I have more detail. But if you go on YouTube and you're typing acting tips, like literally, or script analysis, screen analysis, script interpretation are the things that I watch on YouTube quite a lot. Now during the lockdown, I go on Instagram. There are a couple of audition accounts like Burland Casting, BAC Talent. They do lives sometimes, and they talk a lot about, I think one is called Audition Pro LA. I have to double check that, but they do like audition tips, like how to interpret the scene, not overplaying it, not thinking that every single thing that's written in the script in terms of the comma and the punctuation has to be followed. You know, it's allowing the character to come from you without pretending to be the character. It's about you just being the character, whether it's finding aspects of yourself that are compatible with that character and allowing that to come through. And those are the tips that I really keep in my mind. For example, you know, when I'm doing a casting, I look on what I can add to the scene, sometimes beyond what is written in the script. Sometimes I add little dimensions to it that don't take away from the script, but will add meat to what I'm delivering on camera. For example, if the character is in a bar and in the script he's not holding a glass, sometimes in my audition, I may hold a glass. I may drink in between lines because that's something that I do to create action and to create energy in the scene itself. It's not taking away from the scene because it's not like they're in a supermarket and I have a wine glass. You know, they're in a bar and I have something which is in accordance with the script. So I do things like that, like interpret things very loosely outside of the script to make it interesting. And I also, there's one tip that I was told is to not necessarily obsess with the meaning of every single thing. Like if the character takes up a glass, sometimes it may be instinctive, sometimes it may just flow with the scene. There doesn't necessarily have to be a reason all the time why he's taking up that glass. Sometimes it's just to fill up screen, you know, or to create energy in the scene. So I do pay attention to that kind of information when I'm interpreting the script. But the most important thing that you can, I think, that you can pay attention to as you develop your craft is script analysis, because script analysis helps with understanding the character and helps with understanding how you become one with that character. And you can feel it inside of you. Sometimes when I'm acting, I can tell if I'm cold or hot. Like I can feel something inside of me.
It's an awful feeling when it feels cold, boy.
yeah, because then you're like, damn, like, because it translates on screen, you know? Yeah. And also I've learned from being on sets, like the director from Game of Thrones shouted at me because I had this one thing to do on camera where literally I just had to look from here to here. And because up until that point, I had done some film stuff, but I had done so much theater. He said action, and I went like this. And he threw a fit. He said, don't do that. And he slammed the table and he's like, all I need you to do is just this, because it registers, everything registers on the camera so intensely that sometimes all you need are your eyes to tell a story. All you just need to pour the energy outside of you. And you can tell that for yourself. Also, intonations in the language, vary the language, you know, not everything should be monotone. Find keywords, you know, like if you go through that door, blah, 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 you know, if you allow the lines to vary so that, you know, you can create interest and excitement with what you're saying. You can pull the audience in. So I think those are the tips that I've learned over the years, and there's still more to learn.
Yeah. Kurt had asked earlier, what keeps you centered during the long hours on set to still maintain your professionalism and character?
Because I know I have a journey ahead of me. Like I have things to achieve, so I need to be centered. You know, I'm not at the point now where I can not be centered and expect to get away with it. No way. Like, you know, there are levels to the acting, and I'm at a particular level, and I'm ahead of certain people, but I'm behind others. So I have to really be mindful of where I am, and be conscious of my duty to be exceptionally professional at all times. I'm always on time for castings, for film, everything. I respond to emails like that immediately. I'm always off book, which means I always know my lines in and out, inside out. When I'm auditioning, I don't think I've ever done an audition where I am reading and like that. And that's exactly what my manager expects of me as well. So it goes without saying, once I'm on, you know, I have focus. So I have to stay focused, you know, and yeah. So that's what keeps me motivated.
Okay. Faye says, how has your training at UE assisted you?
Oh, exceptionally well. That's what I use to remember the scripts, and people always call and say, how do you remember all these lines in however many hours? And I was like, well, I have a bachelor's degree from Carmack, and I have a master's degree in film production. I've read a lot of books. I've memorized a lot of things. And, you know, in Jamaica, we have, at that time it was CXC, but all these exams that we have to do, and you have to memorize and read. And that's exactly how I've trained my brain to memorize scripts. And I think that's a gift that I'm grateful for, because I do have the ability to remember lines and complex lines. And I have auditioned for some complex things. Like I did an audition once at Paramount, and it was full of medical jargon, And I went into the audition, and I don't know if the casting director expected me to have the script in my hand, but I'd memorized the whole thing. Also, I just arrived in LA, and I had to prove myself. So I went in, and he was reading the lines with me, and I was reeling off all this medical stuff, blah, 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 blah. And I was waiting on him to say his line, and the casting director was like that. He was like, oh, shoot, just say it, you know, just say what you're saying. And luckily, I had memorized the script, so I just said all my lines in succession, because he had lost track. Because he said afterwards that he impressed that I learned all the medical stuff. And I was like, well, you know, I'm here. If you want to hire me, I'm ready. So,
like, if you're so impressed,
so it has
give me the job.
Yeah, exactly. So it has helped. It also helps with, in terms of being able to think critically about things and being able to think intelligently, because I think Jamaica has one of the best educational systems in the world, certainly as it gets to like university and stuff like that. Like the stuff you learn, and you know, the exposure that you have to different topics and different experiences. And we're really a nation of very enlightened people and exceedingly exceptional people when it comes to academia. And so I've benefited from all of that. I've not that it's just learning scripts, but being able to communicate with people, being able to hold my own, and in environments that may not be familiar to me. You know, when I landed in LA, and immediately I was around directors and went to this one party, and Jenny Dickinson was there being weird. And, you know, it's, you know, you're thrust into all these situations, and you have to learn how to adapt and how to communicate in a way that you represent yourself well. And little people helped with that as well, because we did have courses. We had courses in deportment and you know, learning what fork and knife and spoon and how to hold the glass.
Really?
And we had all of that, actually. Yeah,
wow.
we did. We had all of that. Yeah. We had deportment classes. So all of that helped.
Faye is asking what your greatest fear is.
Wow. You know what? To be completely honest with you, I actually don't focus on fear. Like I'm just on the path, and I just go with it. What I will say is that I think I have an obligation to myself to maximize my abilities, and that is what I'm doing. I don't necessarily have a fear of it. I just know that I need to continue on the path that I'm going on. No, actually, there is. I wouldn't say it's a fear, but I would like to spend a little bit more time with my family, my mom and my dad and stuff like that. I've been away from them for a very long time, and even though we communicate via WhatsApp and phone calls and stuff like that, there is, that longing sometimes to be around them and to have that energy. And so I say, if there is a fear, it would be that, I'm not going to speak this into the universe actually, but I'd just like to say, but that I would like to get myself to a point where I can be anywhere and I can have projects come to me and I can spend time with my family and fly out when I need. So I would say that is one thing. That is one thing that sticks in my mind. The time I have with my family, for sure. Because I've been pretty much, I've been on this journey. I wouldn't say alone because I have support, but you grow up in Jamaica and then all of a sudden you go to England and just you've never gone back. And all of a sudden I'm in LA and it's, I'm still on the journey and the journey makes sense. And so I have to continue this path. So that is one consideration that I have in my head. Yeah.
That message is
and
thanks,
and thanks a lot for staying, Faye. I wasn't sure that she would stay, but thank you so much. And I'm actually, to be completely honest with you, like I looked on that JAFTA flyer and I looked at it as like, whoa, I'm being interviewed in the same program as Faye Ellington. I mean, that means that actually means something to me. So that's an achievement for me.
And it meant something to me to sit and listen to your story, your journey. I'm so impressed. I wish you everything that is good. And I love your attitude. You have the right attitude to accomplish much. Just keep Jamaica's flag flying. Remember that we know you. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, I think Faye has ended very nicely. So if no one has any more questions, I have to say thank you, Marcus, for making the time, because I know you probably have 3 auditions to prepare for after you hang up with it.
Actually, I have one. And you can guess what the role is. But exactly. Like, same.
But thank you.
Warrior. Yeah.
No, but we all appreciate you making the time, and I think it's been really nice for everyone to get the perspective of someone born in Jamaica taking this journey, because a lot of times we've spoken to actors who were born in London, born in America, so the journey is very different than starting your journey here and finding your footing outside of your homeland. And so we all appreciate you taking the time to share that with us. Faye, again, thank you for your words of wisdom, your great questions for the second part of our meeting.
And if anybody, I just want to say, if anybody has any questions, like there's my Instagram, I check my messages all the time. Like you can message me and ask me about things or whatever, just message and I'll respond. I sometimes do get quite a few messages and I just respond and stuff. Yeah. Thank you, Tony Hendricks.
It is now, it's 8:34, so I think that's a wrap for this evening. But I know is Kyle still here? Because Kyle was going to share some other business with us before we headed out, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let me just turn on my video so y'all can see my visage.
You can hang for other news if you want, but you're more than free to run away and do your things that you need to do.
Yeah, I have some lines to learn. But Justine, thank you so much. She just sent a message, and I just want to say thanks to Justine Hensel.
Absolutely. Stay safe out there.
Now, you can imagine that Marcus, spent his Thanksgiving evening doing this. He must think we are very special.
Yes. I do. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. Lisa.
Okay, then.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, hold on. Let me just tilt my whole monitor down. Where am I? Where am I? There I am. Hi, everybody. This is just a, hold on. Yeah, this is just a quick update. So we've been working with Heart to develop the kind of next phase in preparing the Jamaica film and television industry, and that is a broad-based training program in the technical skills in production. And we are hoping to begin the and we're hoping to begin the initiative in January next year. You guys will hear more details about it as we get them into place. But it's a really exciting time. We are looking to bring more people into the industry. We have a lot of roles that need filling, especially if we're looking to make a lot more short films, a lot more feature films, a lot more TV series. And you guys will be hearing a lot more about this. This will be not just simply training, but we're looking to actually get people certified in the industry at different levels and have that certification recognized within the professional sphere in Jamaica. And kind of globally, so that the people that, you know, if you're looking to go abroad and go and work on a film set in LA or whatever, you will be working on the same, you'll be coming from training that is of the same level that they expect when you get on set, right? So look out for that. We're going to be having some announcements probably over the Christmas to really start explaining to people exactly what the certification framework looks like, what the training will look like. And yeah, that's it from me.
Cool. I don't think, is directing involved? Someone asked. Kyle, did you answer that?
Hang on. Yeah, I'm here. Okay, so in terms of training, we're going to be doing a phased rollout. So we're going to be starting with some very core skills in different departments. Grip and electric were mentioned, camera was mentioned, and and production design as departments that we'll start. But eventually, as we proceed and we build out the framework and the curriculum more, we'll be adding different specialties. So look out, directing will be probably coming in at some point in time, or some aspects of directing. One thing I did forget to mention is that these courses will be the certifications will likely be made up of a variety of short courses, so you can pick and choose your way to a certification at a level within a department or whatever. So so you'll be able to customize it to your interests and where you see yourself fitting into the industry, rather than an overly structured film program like you would find at a university or something like that. What is the cost? Okay, so I can't say anything official on the cost yet, but we are looking to have a very accessible introductory program available to everybody, even if you're just looking to kind of get familiar with beyond small film sets and stuff like that, or if you are kind of on the fringes of film, or if you know somebody who's interested in the film and television industry and doesn't know how to get into it. So we'll be starting there with a very accessible program, and in terms of general costing, we'll know as each program is announced, as each different course is announced. Okay, let's see, any more questions?
That's it. I think that's it. Oh, all right. Is there any other business, Annalisa? I don't even know. Is Kevin still here? No. If not, I think I shall move to adjourn and wish everyone an absolute Merry Christmas when it comes, in a COVID Christmas, as we've been saying. And keep safe over the holidays, and we will all see you back in January. Can I get a second?
Second.
I got a second. All right. Thanks, everyone. Good night.